everyone, my name is Tina. Welcome to the G-Sport Hub, and I'm gonna be really fast because the LCP format is out and there's so much to unpack here. Look, I'm not the smartest person, but it took me like 10 times to just read everything on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and I think I finally got it. Let's just go through one by one each step, and I'm gonna try to give you examples. I'm gonna try to explain everything as best as I can. So in case you don't know, LCP is gonna be starting with 8 teams, 4 partner teams with CFO, SH, GAM, and Talon, as well as 4 guest teams of Chiefs, DFM, Team Secret Whales, and the Vikings. I'm gonna talk about the guest teams and how the promotion will work later. If you're curious, there's gonna be chapters down there. But let's just first start with the first split. It's gonna be called the Season Kickoff. The Season Kickoff will be very simple, starting January 17th on Friday. It seems like it's gonna be on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. First of all, we're gonna have a single round robin, BO3 Fearless Draft. This is gonna be full Fearless, but I'm gonna talk later about that. A single round robin for the 8 teams to determine who is the top 6. And only these top 6 teams will be moving on to the playoffs, which is gonna be BO5 full Fearless. Which means that besides just the normal bans in Game 2, all the played champions are gonna be banned from both teams. So if any team picks one champ, neither team can pick that anymore. And as you can see in the graph as well, if it comes to Game 5, there would be 40 extra bans, which is insane. And on the LoL Esport website, you can already see this format in the regional qualifier, where the top 2 teams would be seeded into round 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6 would be starting in round 1. All of them are in the upper bracket. And whoever wins here gets their ticket to first 10, which is going to be from March 10 to March 16. After this, there comes the mid-season. No more Fearless, this is only gonna be just normal League of Legends from now on. Mid-season actually starts with the BO1 for 7 weeks. It is gonna be double round robin BO1, so that means 2 match days per week, and each team plays on both days. And as for playoffs, similar to the first split, the first and second team are gonna be seeded into round 2, while 3 to 6 are gonna be in round 1, with these 2 rounds being best of 3s, and the rest, simple double elimination, are gonna be best of 5s. And the top 2 teams will be making it to MSI. As now we're moving into the season finals, and this is where things start to get a little tricky. So bear with me, I'm gonna try to explain everything, but this is gonna get a little spicy. If you have watched PCS last year, this is not really gonna be a special format for you, but in case you haven't, let me explain. After the mid-season, we're gonna have our rankings from 1st to 8, and based on these rankings, there would be 2 groups. One, the contender, which is 1 to 4th, and the breakout, which is 5th to 8th. And these 2 groups would be playing a best of 3 single round robin. However, after this first phase, there would be a little extra, because before we start phase 2, there would be something called Group Breaker, which is basically just 2 BO3 matches. One of the matches is gonna be the 4th place contender team against the 1st place breakout team, and the other match would be the 3rd place contender team against the 2nd place breakout team. And basically whoever wins these is gonna go to the contender group. Whoever loses these is gonna be going down to the breakout group. It just allows a little bit of a movement before we enter phase 2. And talking about phase 2, this is just gonna be a simple GSL format. The 4 teams are gonna be playing 2 opening matches. The winners are gonna be playing against each other. Whoever wins that one is gonna be the first. You know, you can imagine like what is the ranking here. 1, 2, 3, 4. All the teams from the contender group is gonna be attending playoffs. It's just gonna be for seeding. However, in the breakout group, those 2 are eliminated or just out. So their season will end. They're not gonna be able to qualify to Worlds anymore. And whoever ends 1st and 2nd are gonna be just slotting into the last 2 spots to have 6 teams going into the playoffs. This playoffs will be double elimination with a mixture of BO3s and BO5s. So I would assume, just like with the first 2 splits, this is gonna be first 2 rounds BO3 and the rest BO5. However, the top 3 teams are gonna be going to Worlds, and the first team is gonna be the LCP champion. Now let's move on to the Promotion Relegation tournament, because this literally took me like 15 times to just read again to finally get what's going on. But just so you know, with actual examples, there are 4 guest teams as of right now, and out of those 4 teams, there are 2 from Vietnam, Team Secret Whales and Vikings, and besides them, there are 2 more regions, the Chiefs from Oceania and DFM from LJL Japan. how exactly this relegation works? Let's just start with there are going to be 2 slots that can change after the LCP season. While LCP is going on, there's going to be regional leagues as well going on with the LGL, PCS, VCS, another Oceanic League that's not announced just yet. And there's going to be a wildcard tournament as well for all the other regions that are not in those 4. And after the whole year, there would be 5 winners coming from the domestic leagues. There would be 2 teams relegated from the LCP. Now, let's start with that. Who are these 2 teams? One of the teams would be just the last place guest team, which is, by the way, not necessarily the last team from LCP. The partner teams are not in this scenario. We are choosing from only the 4 guest teams based on rankings, but from the last one out of them is gonna be the FFA team, called the free-for-all team. That spot is 100% gonna be up for contention. That team can still secure the spot, can still defend it. However, they have to defend it. Okay, there is one exception. I'm gonna talk about this rule later because let me just explain first what is the process of selecting these teams. And for that one, I'm actually going to be bringing out the paint. So hopefully it's going to be understandable. At the moment, we have 2 VCS teams as for guest teams, 1 LJL team, and 1 Oceanic team. There are 2 different scenarios, so let's just separate those. What happens if the last place team is the VCS, since they have 2 teams, so they are a special case? And what happens if the last place team is not the VCS, but let's just say Oceania? So in the first case, let's say VCS got the first, and here let's just say VCS got VCS, VCS, and LJL. So these are the rankings of the guest teams. In the first scenario, automatically the last place team is going to be getting the free-for-all slot, so they're going to be 100% at least have to defend their spot. And in the other case as well, Oceania is going to be the free-for-all spot. However, and this is where things get a little confusing, there is going to be another spot called Region Merit, which is in case from the remaining teams, all the other 3 teams are from different regions. That means that you're just going to be the second to last. In this case, it's going to be the Oceanic slot getting the Region Merit slot. But if from the other teams, there are a region that has still 2 teams in after already getting the FFA slot out, that means that the other slot that's going to be up for sale is not the LGLs, but the second team of the region who has still 2 slots. So the worst seeded VCS team in this case is going to be the Region Merit slot. And no matter the scenario, no matter the selection process, the Region Merit slot is going to be up for grabs only against the same region. So that means if the Region Merit slot is the Oceanic team, that means they would be against another Oceanic team, the Oceanic team who won the regional league. That's going to be their opponents, a little bit of civil war. So the better team is going to be going into LCP 2026. But if it's the VCS, that means that their opponent for the Region Merit match would be none other than the VCS champion, the regional league champion. Whoever has the Region Merit slot, these regions cannot be playing for the free-for-all slot. Now let's talk about the free-for-all slot, because that is, as it says, free-for-all. However, as for the free-for-all slot, the Oceanic team in this scenario, in the second scenario, would be playing against the LJL regional champion, against the PCS champion, against an Oceanic champion, and against this other new wildcard champion, tournament champion that's going to be happening later. So that's basically how it works. The free-for-all slot still makes it possible for at least 1 slot to be rotating among regions, but the Region Merit slot also makes sure that there is not like too many changes and that it's not possible for like 4 Vietnamese teams to be in the guest slots. And basically, unless you're lost, you're at least confirmed your region to be staying as a guest team. Maybe not your team, but your region. For example, if in this case, it's not LGL here, but Oceania, and LGL ends second to last among guest teams, that means that LGL would be playing against another LGL team and they would have a guaranteed guest slot. So unless DFM is not dead last, there's gonna be 2 LGL teams next year as well. Do you guys remember when I said there is a little bit of an exception? I'm just gonna mention it here at the end of the video, because if any of these teams get to Worlds, they would not have to be in this promotion relegation tournament. And actually there are some scenarios when this could happen. Let's just say all the 4 partner teams dead last, and the first 4 spots are gonna be just for guest teams. There is a scenario when, let's say, VCS 1 wins this whole thing, VCS 2 get second, and then LJL and Oceania. There is a scenario when all of these 3 teams are going to Worlds, but because of how this promotion relegation works, the Oceanic teams would be getting the FFA slot. The VCS second still would be going for the region merit slot, but since they are at the Worlds, it's not gonna happen. In this case, I think there would just be no region merit, since there is only one single team from the guest teams who are not at Worlds. But besides this, I would say very unlikely event. Everything I said before just still stands. There is only one more little information that I think is pretty interesting, is that we're gonna have live patches now! Just like LCS had last year, we're also gonna be introducing live patches, with the only exception being if the patch is too close to the match week, or if there is any patch released during qualifying series of playoffs. So from those, it's just gonna be the same patch, but in the regular season, we're gonna have live patches. Don't forget that season kickoff is gonna be starting January 17th. Thank you for watching the G Sport Hub. Subscribe if you want more content. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky. We are posting on both platforms. And if you want to support our work, we also have a Patreon at patreon.com/gsporthub. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye bye!